Well, Brian and I went out there last summer. We went to Glenwood Cemetery. It's a big, beautiful cemetery. It's an old cemetery. And we went and visited one particular grave out there. It's a grave that's been there for a very long time, at least a century and a half at this point. And a legend has developed around this grave. Because the grave, for the longest time, it had on it, the inscription was nothing more than TW. And around the grave were these iron chains around the grave. And when we saw those iron chains are broken, they were on the ground and they were broken. And we don't quite know why they were broken, but of course, local legend's gonna tell us why, right? Because in 1904, in May of 1904, Yazoo City had a horrendous fire break through. This fire burned down about half the buildings in town. Over 3,000 people were affected by the fire. It's a pretty wicked thing. And folks believe that the fire, a lot like Aunt Julia Brown, was for a reason. Somebody cursed them. Now, local legend says that about 20 years prior to this event, there was a woman living on the edge of town. I sounded really yandy there, didn't I? A woman, the New Orleans is coming out. A woman living on the edge of town. A woman was living on the edge of town. She was a witch. It's a very stereotypical witch in all the tellings. You know, she was cruel, she was ugly, she was old, all those sorts of things. And they say that this woman living out there on the Yazoo River was bringing men in, some of these fishermen in from the river, and bringing them into her home. She was torturing them as witches do, and then she killed them. Following that, she'd take their bodies, she'd take them out back, and she'd bury them on the wooded hillside behind her house back there. And of course, being the witch that she was, she'd dance on their graves at night, right? That's what she did to these men. She got away with it for a long time, until eventually too many bodies, too many folks were disappearing. So the folks in Yazoo City, they wanted something done. They wanted to know where all these people went. The local lawman, the sheriff, they all started searching through town. And of course, you know where they ended up, right? They ended up at the witch's cabin, out there on the edge of Yazoo City. Now, some people say that they found full skeletons of those men in that house that day. Other people say there were just bones, things like that, but it didn't matter. They knew the witch had done it. They knew exactly who the problem was here, who had caused this. But the witch was smart, I guess. Maybe this isn't ending well. I don't know. The witch ran away as fast as she could into that swamp. She took off into the swamp. And she went running. Those men, they started to chasing her. A bunch of men from town, they went behind her. She was gone for a good while. Went out there late into the night. Kept going deeper and deeper into the swamp. And then eventually, the woman got caught in quicksand. She started sinking into quicksand. Y'all remember quicksand from childhood, right? Well, she got caught in quicksand. And those men, of course, they caught up to her because of this. And they caught up to her right as the last of her body is kind of getting sucked into that swamp right there. And she looked up at them that day. And she told them quite simply, in 20 years, I will return and burn this town to the ground. It's not much different than Aunt Julia's promise there, right? Well, those men, they took her body back to the cemetery. They dug her up, pulled her out, took her down to the old Glenwood cemetery out there, and they buried her in the Glenwood cemetery. And everybody believes that's what this tomb was. That's this headstone. TW, the witch. And they put these iron chains around her headstone to try and keep her in. They were worried about that curse. And that's what they did. Nobody thought about it for years. Nobody thought about her again. But then y'all know when 1904 came around, in May of 1904, and that fire broke out, and the town was just utterly decimated. You know who they thought about, right? They thought about that woman who lived on the edge of town. They thought about that promise that she made. So several people went out to the cemetery, and they went to her tomb, and sure enough, what did they find? They found that those heavy iron chains were broken and on the ground.